Yo, what up, everybody? It is another edition of the Orangebloods Texas football channel. It's like OB at night. It's just me tonight, Geoff Ketchum. As we get started, do me a solid. Like the channel, subscribe to the channel, do all of the things with the channel as I see Charles, Monday's gummy winner in the house. The thing we wanted to do was have a evening show that might allow some people who don't normally get to participate in the Orangebloods videos in the daytime or the morning time or any of the other time. We figured we'd do some stuff at night in the evening. And I don't know if gummies to the first poster. I don't think we're doing that, but it can't hurt. It's the Alex Dunlap approach to commenting in the comment section, right? Just ask for free stuff. And sometimes they might actually give you free stuff. Hey, if it's possible, if our guy Richard from Rogue comes in tonight and just wants to give away some stuff, I'll keep you in mind for being first today. We will have to do a prize. Look, man, it's been a hard day, right? We're all hurting a little bit. We don't know what to do. Between 14 and 18 kids shot today, and I was like not feeling doing the show. Then I was like, what the hell else am I going to do? Just sit around feeling bad? So let's talk some sports. Let's talk some UT football and see if we can distract each other for an hour or so in what has otherwise been a pretty hard day, I think, here in the state of Texas, to say the least. Couple of things. Like I said, it's just going to be me tonight. So I'll try to be more interactive. You guys don't have to worry about telling me not to talk on top of Anwar because it's just me. So I can just say I can say anything I want to tonight, not have to worry about, interrupting Anwar as I so often do. For those of you that haven't watched me solo, just know that I did like 10 years of radio, and almost half of that was doing a national radio show for the now defunct Yahoo Sports Radio. Hope I'm not the one responsible for the fact that network didn't make it, but I've done solo stuff before. And I thought, you know what, let's do some tonight. Shout out to Chris Roberts. I always have to ask Chris, and forgive me if I've asked this before, are you former McCallum Knight, former Texas football player, Chris Roberts? Because I know it's kind of a common name, right? Like it's probably not the first time people have asked you about whether or not you're the same Chris Roberts as another Chris Roberts. But I did have a friend. I think I still do have a friend. I think we went to high school together. Just wondering. Shout out to Isaiah. And, everybody in the chat, if you want to skip to the front of the line on the chat, we do have the super chat option. I will be taking questions in addition to going through all the various topics. I'm going to lead off with some Arch Manning here in just a second. So super chat's an option, and I'll put you right to the front of the line. Otherwise, I've got kind of a list of ideas and topics that I want to go into tonight. We'll do a bunch of Q&A. It'll be a little bit like the chats I do on Orangebloods from time to time when we do them at night. Pretty much anything goes. And, let's have some fun. Let's start with the big news in college football of the day. Eli Holstein from Zachary, Louisiana, number 51 player in the Rivals 100, the number 5 quarterback in the country in the Rivals rankings. I'll be honest, I could have looked up what he was ranked in the other services. I didn't. My kid is screaming in the background. I'm about to have to scream at my kids. Here, I'll just do that. Hey, shut up! Eli Holstein commits. This was going to happen on the at-night deals, especially as we get into the summertime. I might just have to tell the kids they got to be quiet. So Eli Holstein, the kid out of Zachary, Louisiana, commits to Alabama today. And it kind of like shakes up the Arch Manning recruitment a little bit, because one of the real conversation pieces that have been taking place between the idea of Arch to Alabama or Georgia or Texas is, if you're any of these three schools, how long do you wait? I mean, only one of the three is going to get Arch Manning. Would all three wait potentially into August or September or October as he's waiting to make an announcement on where he's going to go. And, I think Alabama answers that question a little bit today in the sense that they take a commitment from Holstein. And from what I've been able to gather, it sounds like Arch Manning's still going to take his official visit to Alabama. It also sounds like I get the sense that Alabama has been communicating that they're probably going to take potentially 2 quarterbacks in this class anyway. So I don't know how much it impacts the Manning sweepstakes, if you will, because I think he's still going to visit Alabama. And if he wants to go to Alabama, Alabama is there. I think the common sense, though, reveals that this is probably a Texas-Georgia battle with Alabama running third, if for no other reason. Let's just be realistic, right? I mean, Holstein commits. That won't scare off Arch Manning. Again, if he really wants to go to Alabama, Holstein's not going to scare him off. He would just commit, and at that point, Holstein he's already decommitted once. He could just decommit again. By the way, what a shot caller Saban was today in getting the commitment days after his little riff with Jimbo Fisher to get a commitment from the guy that used to be committed to Jimbo. It did feel a little bit like an Alabama flex just for the sake of an Alabama flex. But I think we're now in a situation where I'm not so confident that I would just say Arch Manning is down to Texas and Georgia. I think there will be headlines. I don't know that. I'm sorry. I'm making sure that I haven't missed anything in the chat section. Guys, I'll get to you in the chat. I absolutely promise. Don't hit me with too many comments in the sense that as a one-man show here, a little harder to keep up with the chats and do the show at the same time. I think so. If I don't get to your questions right away, know that I'll come back to them. I think Texas is 1, Georgia's 2, Alabama's 3. Alabama gets a commitment today. That doesn't help their cause, even if it doesn't necessarily hurt their cause. I think this still comes down to whether or not Texas can convince Arch and his father and their family as a whole that Texas isn't risky. If Texas wins 9 games last year, I think Arch Manning's already committed to Texas. I think, and maybe that's, I don't know, seen through burnt orange glasses. But going 5-7 is the pause. If you're the Mannings, if you're Arch, as much as you like Steve Sarkisian, you're looking at programs that are competing for national championships in the other 2 spots. And, Texas has got to prove that they're not going to screw this thing up, that they're not going to waste this kid's time. They're not going to waste the Manning name's time. I think these visits are critical. I wouldn't be surprised. They may wait till the fall, but might be the last time. Look, he could make a decision in September, and this could be the last set of visits that they make. Now, look, maybe he visits all 3 again in August and wants to see them practice or something like that. Maybe, but this also could be the last time you get him on your campus before he makes a decision, whether it's end of the summer, first month of September in the football season, whatever it is that he eventually feels comfortable with. You can't stress enough how important the next couple of weeks are. And if you're Texas, I think you just got to keep doing what you're doing. The family likes Texas. Family likes Austin. They've got a little bit of a history there. They go back. I covered. There's a like alternative universe out there where Eli Manning ended up going to Texas. That Chris Sims stayed committed to Tennessee, and that Archie Manning and Eli, when they made that decision, I think Texas would have been a real factor. I can't say that at the end of the day, he definitely would have picked Texas over Ole Miss, but there was a moment in Eli Manning's recruitment when he favored Texas. And there was a lot of conversation back in 1998 about if you're Texas and both want to come, who would you take? And the consensus was always, well, Chris Sims is the number one player in the country, and Eli wasn't completely thought of that as that level. And there was some thought that Eli wanted to stay out of the way of Chris Sims. But, this infatuation with Texas goes back decades. And I think that if you're Texas, you just got to keep doing what you're doing. Every time. There's not one thing that I think Texas has to do to lift itself out of the, even higher than the position that it's in, other than to keep doing what it is that they're doing. The issue is going to be, there's nothing that you can say to that kid or that family that is going to prove to them that you're taking steps as a football program before you can play another game. It was the reason initially that I thought Texas had kind of blown it with Arch, because, and I'm going to take some questions here in just a second that are specific to the Mannings and Arch. I see some of the things, and I do want to get interactive. They got to play some games. And it's really strange to me if the thought process is we need to see that Texas is at least above 5-7 from a year ago, that we're not going to commit to a program that, let's say they go 6-6 or 7-5, and Sark is on the hot seat a little bit in year 3. And I don't think Sark's on the hot seat at all right now. But we can't pretend that if this season somehow fails, I think 7-5 is a failure. And it's I can't imagine there's anybody in the chat right now that's like, no, 7-5 in Bijan's last seasons with Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning on the line. That makes perfect sense. I can't imagine anybody would think that that's a success. I think that it's going to be strange, and it feels like it could come down to, does Texas just represent themselves against Alabama? Do they just not get pile driven? Because other than that, unless he's going to wait into October, how long is he going to wait to see if Texas is legitimate? How long into his, how much benefit of the doubt does he give them that he's keep giving me a reason to commit to Texas? And I think there's a lot of you out there that would say, if you keep saying, give me reasons to commit, why don't you just commit? It sounds like you want to commit. It is what it is, though. They want to see that Texas is not going to embarrass them and, again, put them into a position where they might have to change their mind, right? I mean, the thing they don't want to do, and the thing that I think they would do if they had to, is if they did commit early and then Texas just vomited all over themselves. I mean, look, I think we'll all have some doubts if they play at a level on the field this season that would keep giving the Mannings doubts. All right, let's get to some questions. I'll go back to one that I saw here. Let me see where it went. Josh, what did I do? I didn't mean to do that. Josh had a question that apparently I can't find in the chat any longer. Oh, here it is. Come on. I am not doing a good job. The question essentially is, from Josh Nutt, is LSU a legit sleeper for Arch? I mean, I can't see him going anywhere other than the 3 schools that he's looking at. I won't ever completely dismiss LSU. I don't know that I look at Brian Kelly as the kind of recruiter that's going to go out and take somebody from a Sarkisian or a Saban or, from Georgia. It's just those schools are superior for me than Chip Kelly, than Brian Kelly. And I don't know. If there's a sleeper team, it's probably LSU. But I really think his decision is going to come. It's not an accident that he's got 3 official visits set. It's to the 3 schools that he has set, and that there may not be any other official visits set. William asks, so if Card isn't the starter, how soon after the decision does he wait to enter the portal? I think the word I've got that he's scheduled to graduate in December. I think Hudson Card is locked in and is going to be on the Texas football team this season. The thing that it allows Hudson Card to do. I mean, even if he loses the job, which is I think what we all expect. We all expect that Quinn Ewers is going to be the starter. So we saw it a season ago. Things can happen. Injuries can happen. If you're Hudson, you want to get your degree. And if after 12 games, Quinn Ewers plays all 12 and 13 and maybe even 14 if you can get to a conference championship game, if he plays a whole season and lights it up, I mean, the decision's kind of made for Hudson Card. I have to believe that Hudson thinks that even if he loses the job, there's a good chance at some point this season they'll need him. I think you can look at most of Sam Ehlinger's career. At some point during the year, he'd get hurt. And then we'd always have that conversation. Can he stay healthy enough to give you a chance if he's your quarterback? I think Hudson Card probably thinks even if I lose the job, I'm going to get on the field in 2022. And I'm either going to do my thing or I'm not. But these things will answer themselves over the course of the season and not necessarily. That's the one good thing about him waiting to transfer. He really is giving himself, I think, every opportunity to make this thing happen. And like I said, if in the end, I think if you're Hudson Card and Quinn's just that dude, then, I think at that point you transfer and you got your degree and you gave it your best shot. Derek is asking, I know Arch is going to be the subject of the topic a lot. Actually, I promise I'm going to get into a lot of things, Derek. I've got plans to give an update on Diamante Tucker Dorsey. We'll talk some Tarique Milton. I'm going to take some more questions. We'll talk some 2023 recruiting. Like, I plan on doing this for at least an hour. So, we got plenty of time. Hang out with me. I promise I'll try to get to all your questions. And look, Corey makes a good point. We really don't know how healthy Ewers. We really don't know how healthy Ewers can stay throughout a season. That's what I'm saying, Corey. Like if you're Hudson Card, even if you feel like they're not even going to give me a chance and I'm going to lose the job, I think he probably feels pretty confident that he'll at least be in a situation where he'll get an opportunity to play and show out, because it happened a year ago. I mean, he got back on the field and then he didn't stay healthy himself. But there's a world out there where he kind of finishes up the season last year. He just started to kind of earn, maybe this is going too far. I was going to say start to earn a little bit of Sarkisian's trust. I don't know if that happened, but he was starting to at least get back into a good enough favor that he was back on the field again. And then, he gets hurt. But like that thing went both ways last year. And his experience at this point would be the number 2 quarterback at Texas behind that offensive line may very well get a chance to start several games, even if he loses the job in the first place. My man, Money Out the Anus says, who, if any, commits first to Texas of the big 3, Owens, Manning, or Cook? My money is on Owens with Cook at a close second. Money, I talked about this on Monday. I think it was yesterday in the Monday Overreaction show. Maybe it was Thursday. Like, the thing about doing as many videos that we do is I can't remember half the shit I say, half the time I say it. Excuse me for my adult language there. S word's okay. That's like PG-13. It's after 7 o'clock at night. I'm hearing that Texas is expecting to get some real buzz in recruiting and some real momentum. And I think I'm hearing, I had been hearing a couple of weeks ago that Texas was going to get some real juice going around the middle of the month. And I kind of talked it around with guys on the staff. What's the significance of the middle of the month? Kind of asked that question for about a week. Like, what's special about the 15th if arbitrarily we pick that date? And I think the announcement of Manning's visit the weekend directly after the 15th, what is it, the 17th through the 19th? Now it makes sense. If you really wanted to manufacture and generate some buzz going in at any point, doing it right before Manning's visit so that you can kind of like emphasize we're going to be good whether or not you're here or not. Our recruiting class isn't necessarily dependent upon whether or not you commit. That's a lot of pressure. If Arch Manning feels like, God, Texas's whole existence as a 2023 recruiting machine depends on whether or not I commit or not, that could be a turnoff as much as a motivating factor to get you to commit. I think what they want to do is have a group of guys before he visits commit. The question is, who could commit, let's say on the 13th, 14th, 15th, whatever, in the week leading up to Manning's visit? Who could commit that would matter for him, right? Like, if Texas gets a DB commitment, I don't know that Arch Manning is like, oh, man, I was waiting for them to get that cornerback. Now I feel good, right? No. The thing that you might think would impact that more than anything else is somebody on the offensive side of the ball, these offensive skill guys that mostly when you hear that Arch Manning has been hanging out with guys, you hear that it's Reuben Owens or it's a Jonte Cook, wide receivers, running backs, name prospects. Keep an eye on Jonte Cook. That's if I'm making a big, bad, bold prediction, keep an eye on Jonte Cook. I know that he has an official visit scheduled after Arch Manning's visit. I think the next weekend, if I'm not mistaken, Jonte Cook's got a visit scheduled. But it wouldn't surprise me to see a guy like Jonte Cook commit, keep taking visits, just file that little note away. I do think Reuben Owens, I think that's clearly coming. Look, he's not going to TCU. He's not going, was it Louisville? He's not going to these places. Just like, some of these kids in the 2023 cycles seem to be just wasting their visits. Was it Anthony Hill who's going to Michigan State? And it's like, come on. You're not going to Michigan State? Stop that. By the way, let me see what's going on here. So Anwar made, if you're not on Orangebloods, let's just reset for a second. If you're not actually on Orangebloods, shame on you. Shame on you. Go sign up to Orangebloods. You never know. Like, even when I'm in the middle of a show on a Tuesday night on YouTube, Anwar is dropping little bombs. This was the little note just posted a second ago. Arch Manning has informed multiple people that he is not opposed to being redshirted at Texas. Interesting. I was told the Manning family respects the process of developing quarterback and is not in a rush for Arch to play. They believe in Steve Sarkisian's ability to develop quarterbacks. As a result, the Mannings will take or make a 4 or 5 year commitment if that's what it takes for Arch to develop into an NFL quarterback. All right, there you go. A little bit of Arch Manning scoopage on the channel. So obviously go to Orangebloods. I still have my 10 thoughts from the weekend. Alex had a column posted, I think, yesterday breaking down Tarique Milton and his commitment to Texas. And we'll talk a little bit about that here in a little bit. I think actually Alex went through the needs that Texas has on the roster with regards to space that's remaining with the portal. So there you go. There's always tons of stuff on OB to check out, let alone baseball, basketball, all of the other coverage that we have. Also, now that we got creeping up on 300 people in the chat, like the video right now. Don't be lazy. Do me a solid, right? I'm gonna be going for at least another 30, 40 minutes. Hit the like button. If you're new to Orangebloods or you just haven't done it yet, subscribe to the channel so that you can always be able to check out our content that we're providing on a daily basis. I think it's going to be an exciting season, and I don't think anybody is consistently producing the content both on on the web, but also on YouTube, as good as we do over at orangebloods.com. If you're new, welcome. Hopefully we'll do right by you. Couple more questions, and then I want to get into my second topic of the day. Let me just make sure. Let me scroll through this. I don't know why Jonte Cook scares you, Rob. Like I said, I think that one has a chance to happen. But I think Jonte is a little bit of a wild card. But I think he's leaning enough to Texas that I've already put in a future cast this a couple of weeks ago. So I at least went and took that step. Another question from Money: if this O-line doesn't look good this year, we could see Malik on the field before the season is all said and done. I guess. It's not. That could happen whether or not the offensive line gets fixed or not. It's college football, so injuries can happen. We've even seen at Texas in the last decade that you can have that kind of a year where guy gets concussion and then he gets banged up. And the next thing you know, you're playing your third string guy. The offensive line question, though, obviously still exists. And if you check out a video that we're doing tomorrow on the site, Anwar and I had a conversation about from an optimal level in 2022, the virtues of using the portal versus going with the youngsters that they did a year ago. Let's see real quick. Isaiah here is asking, by the way, don't forget to use the super chat. We do that on the Monday show, and it gets you cut right to the front of the line, and you get your questions read immediately. Plus, I'll give you some shine. I'll give you some love. Tell you how much I like you. Hey, you know what? Hold that thought, Isaiah. Michael is right. He's been trying to get an update on Jalen Gilbo. I think he's made about 14 posts. Michael, I'm doing a show, okay? I'm sorry. I've been talking about Arch. And so I have not. But you know what? To be completely fair, 75 question marks will get your attention. Look, man, Jalen Gilbo had allegedly, Sarkisian hasn't talked about it. I don't want to go too in-depth into a situation that quite frankly, I don't know all of the details. But from what we've heard, there's a gun issue with Gilbo that he's got to clear up. And, I think he's going to be back. I think Ishmael Ibrahim is expected to be back. I think that they both still have some work to do off the field that has nothing to do with football before they're involved again in the program. But from what I'm hearing, they're both expected back. But, I don't know. I wouldn't even if he comes back, I have no expectations that Jalen Gilbo is going to make an impact on the 2022 season. Now, let me go back to Isaiah. He was asking me, what was it? Seems like it was the difference between, what separates Jonte Cook from Evan Stewart? I don't know that I view Jonte as quite the athlete that Evan Stewart is. I think Jonte Cook is a phenomenal football player, but I don't know. To me, Evan Stewart was and is a rare athletic talent at the wide receiver position. I rated him as a 5-star guy. It would not shock me at all if in 3 or 4 years, we can make jokes about Jimbo Fisher's not producing wide receivers and who's going to do this, and he's wasting his time. Evan Stewart's an NFL talent in the making, and I think Jonte Cook's probably, for me, just a smidge below that. And if you're asking me what separates them, I think you can make a case that coming out of his junior year, Jonte Cook's a better football player than Evan Stewart, right? We're talking fine margins here, but I also think that Evan Stewart as an athlete for me just burst off the film in such a way. He's such a freaky dude that, because if Evan Stewart hits, he's going to be a first-round pick. That's that. Now, Is he going to be Damon Demas and be an idiot? I mean, that's the thing. These kids, these 5 stars, a 5-star receiver is going to hit between 50 and say 65% of the time, depending on the year and the situation. If I had to give a big old mutated average of like the last 10 years, it's probably between 55 and 60%. 60% those guys end up usually being NFL players and at a high rate drafted in the first 3 rounds. And that other 45 to 40% being an idiot, injuries, homesickness, girl problems, boy problems, family problems. Did I mention just being an idiot? And look, then you have to even save some room in there for we just got it wrong. So there are all these things that represent the 40 to 45%, and any of that can happen to Evan Stewart. But if that stuff doesn't happen to Evan Stewart, to me, he's an NFL player in the making. And I kind of view Jonte Cook like that as well. I think my percentages on Cook would be more along the lines of 35 to 40% being that type of NFL draft prospect as opposed to 55 to 60. I'm going to get back to the chats in just a second. Again, do me a solid. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, get the notifications, do all that stuff. I did want to talk about Diamante Tucker Dorsey. He's still in Austin on his official visit. For those of you who might be completely unaware of who in the hell is Diamante Tucker Dorsey, James Madison grad transfer linebacker. And, hold on, stop the presses. Stop the presses. We got a super chat question. And my man, who is that? The letters are so damn small. I feel like I'm blind. I'll get to the name in a second. My God. On my screen, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do an old person thing. Can I make that freaking thing bigger so that I just did? You know what? Now I got it. Ran Rodriguez, LFs. Is my boy a Liverpool fan at that? Oh, Ran, my man. LFC in the house. Seems like anytime we hear, so this is how it works. You want your question immediately. If you want to interrupt me from whatever it is that I'm saying, the way you do that is hit the super chat. You saw how that happened? I was trying to do some Tucker Dorsey updates, and Rand was like, nah, man, you were going to take my question. Cool. Seems like anytime we hear recruiting news, it's always offensive. Why are they not involved with many highly ranked defensive recruits? We really need help there. Rand, yes, Texas does need help. And look, they're going after dudes. It's not like Texas doesn't have its hat in the ring for the best players in the state of Texas specifically, right? When you think about whether you're talking about the linebacker Anthony Hill, whether you're talking about David Hicks, the defensive end out of Katy, whether you're talking about Javian Toviano. I mean, there are defensive players in this class that are absolutely legit. Malik Muhammad, who's a guy that is out of South Oak Cliff in Dallas, and I think Texas is making some movement up there. Of all the guys in state on the defensive side of the ball that are impact recruits, Malik Muhammad's probably the guy that stands out the most in terms of if I had to put $5,000 on one of the 4 kids that I just mentioned, probably would put it on Malik Muhammad at this point. The problem that Texas has is that these recruits don't believe in this Texas defensive coaching staff yet. I mean, let's just keep it a buck. Texas did okay last year recruiting. Yeah, man, the super chat. Michael says the super chat's the same as NIL. A little bit. Hey, I am not above being bribed on these chats. I just want to be completely honest about that. I will sell my soul and answer some questions with the super chat action. I think this defense got to prove from a coaching staff standpoint that they can put together a defense that kids want to play for. A year ago, you got some guys that were willing to give, they go out of state and they get Justice Finkley and they get Jamon Tapp, and those guys really connected with the staff. and gave the staff the benefit of the doubt. In-state players aren't yet doing that. And that's got to change. But I don't think it's going to change before Texas proves that on the defensive side of the ball, they're going to be somebody that's going to excite these kids. Kind of simple as that. Thanks for the question, Rand. I will get back to other questions momentarily unless somebody hits me with the super chat. Just want to go back to Diamante Tucker-Dorsey. If you're wondering about the James Madison linebacker, still on campus. I think Jason Sukumel thought he arrived on Monday, and so that meant that Tuesday might be his last day. So he reached out to Tucker. We're just going to call him Tucker because in an interview with Serenity, instead of being called Diamante or Tucker Dorsey or DTD, he said call him Tuck. So Mama calls him Tuck. I'm going to call him Tuck. He mentioned that he's going to leave campus tomorrow. So he's still on his official visit. He mentioned that things were going great. You know, it wouldn't shock me if that kid commits before he leaves campus. Rob's asking, who is he, Ketch? He's a grad transfer from James Madison, who's been an incredibly productive linebacker at that level for James Madison. And James Madison, in terms of, Division II linebackers, the old Division II, if you will. James Madison is a really good program at that level, and he was their best defensive player. Here's the thing. He's 5'10", 214 pounds. So just like he told Serenity, best way to think of him is he's got the size of a safety, and he hits like a linebacker. He's a little bit of a small guy, and I think that he feels like he needs a better platform to give himself an NFL chance. I think this is a guy that wants to be an NFL player, wants to be an NFL drafted player, and this was the way that, he got himself there. Real quick, couple of questions. A Mars just, I think, gave me $1. Like, I'm not even sure. We'll take this one. Jesse asked, what are our chances with Ruben Owens? I think Texas is going to get Ruben Owens. Is Texas still high on Jalen Hell? Yes, but probably not. I think the receiver you need to keep your eye on and stay outside of Jonte Cook at this point is Jaquez Petaway from Langham Creek. He's going to be visiting the same weekend as Arch. And I haven't put in a future cast yet for Petaway, but I think there's a very good chance that Petaway ends up being a wide receiver in this class. Also, keep an eye out for Longview 24 running back Taylor Tatum. Dig that name. Ranked number 3 nationally. Well, yeah, I mean, I will keep my eye out for a running back from Longview. Shout out to Vondrell McGee from back in the day. Shout out to Jesse White for jumping into the super chat and participating. Travis, I'll come right back to you, A. Mars. Travis says, do we get Petaway if Arch commits elsewhere? Yeah, man. I think so. Don't hold me to that, but yeah, I think so. Don't hold me to that. I'm going to say 500 things. And you guys are going to hold me all of them wrong. Amars was asking, what does the staff need to do to get the defensive recruiting up? They got to play good on there's a couple of things. They got to play better. And this was a bad defense a year ago, and nobody emerges as an NFL player from last season. I guess Josh Thompson's going to get a crack, but I mean, we're going to talk about undrafted rookie free agents. Nothing went right on the defensive side of the ball a year ago. None of the positions played well. The players that you would expect to evolve and emerge and become better, a lot of those guys didn't. And then the other side of this is the defensive staff as a whole doesn't have the rainmakers that the offensive staff has. I mean, Pete Kwiatkowski's not known really. I'm not saying he's a terrible recruiter, but he's not known as a guy that you send in-house for an unofficial visit because he'll help close the deal. I think Jeff Choate, kind of the same situation, doesn't have a history as a high-level recruiter. I think that you look in the secondary, think Blake Gideon's a good recruiter, but is he elite? I don't think that's proven yet. Whereas if you look on the offensive side of the ball, Kyle Flood's an elite offensive line recruiter. Jeff Banks is one of the best recruiters in the country. Brennan Marion is getting guys' attention. I think Tashard Choice getting attention. The offensive side of the ball has just better recruiters right now than the defensive side of the ball does. And, when that happens, I think that, it just kind of is what it is, to be completely honest. I mean, it's not rocket science. My man Waves Deep saying Bo Davis ain't bad. Waves, you're exactly right. Bo Davis is probably the best on the defensive staff, along with Blake Gideon. I think both of those guys do really good jobs. But I still don't know that I would say he's elite of the elite. I wouldn't put him in the same category, even though Bo Davis has a fine history as a recruiter. I don't know that I think of him on the same level that I do with Banks and Flood. And, he probably has a resume that suggests he should be listed over Marion and Choice as recruiters. But yeah, I'll give Bo Davis some love. He's a very good recruiter. Just don't know if he's elite. Gregory saying, glad you're on. Glad to be on, man. I enjoy doing this. And like I said, doing a show tonight or in the evening in general allows me to connect with some people who otherwise don't have a chance to get involved in the shows that we do when we go live. Like, it's a completely different audience at times in the PM with a live show versus, obviously what we do in the morning. And I don't have to trample all over Anwar. I realize it. I'm a bad partner sometimes because let me tell you what I hated in radio. I hated watching guys play tennis as radio show partners. You talk, I talk. You talk, I talk. You talk, I talk. Back and forth. Robotic. I prefer it to be organic, excitable. I want us to have fun. And if that means occasionally either one of us jumping in and I'd like to think of what we do as the barbershop a little bit. This is Anwar and I, if we were at the barbershop. And consequently, I will interrupt some people at the barbershop. Apologies for my barbershop behavior, but I will interrupt some people. I don't have to worry about interrupting people in the middle of doing a solo thing at night. So, hopefully we'll do more of these things. I know Anwar and I'll be going live on Thursday morning for the modcast. I don't know if we have any other live shows scheduled today. Who knows? Maybe I'll do another one of these later in the week. Real quick, back to Diamante Tucker Dorsey. Just want to make sure that I hit on that. Rob, to be fair, what the hell am I doing at the barber shop? Touche, Rob. Touche. I need a shave. That's what I'm getting done at the barber shop. And then occasionally these little hairs, they grow, but I can't even really call them hairs, if I'm being completely honest. I think Texas is going to get Tucker Dorsey. Tuck. I think that it's not known yet. When Jordan Addison left a couple of weeks ago, they knew that he was going to USC for that official visit. And one of the things that Texas, the thing that I'd always heard in the Jordan Addison conversation is Texas felt best while he was on campus. And they thought they had a chance to potentially get that dude to commit while he was on campus. And then they knew that if he didn't commit, that their percentages went down. I think they thought they would go down because he might commit to USC almost immediately, right? Like now he goes to visit them and then he jumps on their offer, and then that's kind of that. I don't think Texas anticipated that Addison would go to USC, exit USC, and then take a week to figure out what he wanted to do and have his people circle back around and talk to Texas. I mean, it can't go without saying that he gave Texas another chance last week. And, he let his lawyers, his people were talking, with Texas, and it wasn't like a courtesy thing. It wasn't pity. Anyway, back to that because I brought him up. I think that there's some anticipation that they could get Tucker Dorsey committed while he's on campus. It's unknown at this point whether or not he's going to visit anywhere else. He visited Central Florida, and look, this dude's from Virginia originally, so I don't even know that originally I was thinking, oh, he must be like a Florida kid, and now Central Florida is the local school that he's just going to check out. But no, that's not really the case. So Central Florida is a school that he looked at. Texas is a school that he's looking at. I don't know if there's an official visit scheduled beyond this. So if it's Texas and Central Florida, I like Texas's chance to get this kid to play. I think that where he really helps Texas in a way that I think fans should, be excited about if he comes to Texas. First of all, he's just a good football player. I mean, Texas doesn't have enough good football players on defense that a guy that's played for 4 years and been, the best player in a small program, like they're not so good that guy can't help them. So he immediately helps depth. And I think when you talk about sub packages, and it's one of the things that Tuck talked about on his coming out of his official visit when we were able to interview him shortly before, I guess after his Central Florida visit, when we talked to him, he mentioned that Texas had a very specific idea for how they wanted to use him. Passing downs, maybe getting your Mike linebacker off the field. If you're playing in a dime, he's that guy. They talked specialty packages with him, and I think that it connected. Now, he'll be able to get some NIL dollars if he transfers to Texas. I mean, that'll just happen. He will, it's a better platform. If the conversation is Central Florida or Texas playing in the Big 12, I think gives them an edge. So I think Texas had, and look, it could be maybe he digs Austin in the way that Arch Manning digs Austin. I don't know. It's probably the first time he's ever been to Austin is the last 48 hours or so. But I think the chance that Central Florida would have is they've probably mentioned to him, look, if you come in, you start for us. You start for us, and you're on the field for 3 downs. That's not something that Texas is automatically going to be able to promise him. I mean, Jalen Ford and DeMarvion Overshone are kind of the main 2 linebackers right now when you think about the Mike and the Will position. And he's not going to start at will necessarily over DeMarvion Overshone. So it's but he gives you depth. He allows you potentially to move DeMarvion Overshone around. There's been a clamoring for years, really, that is there a way that Overshone, on a team that desperately needs a pass rush, is there a world where you can get DeMarvion Overshone in a position where he's coming after the quarterback on passing downs? Maybe, and maybe you could put him on the same field as Tuck, and then potentially you've helped your sub packages in a way that wouldn't have otherwise existed. You almost have to think 3-dimensionally, I think, with Tuck. You have to not think about what's our starting linebacker position look like and whose job can he take. I think he brings immediate depth. I think he brings immediate added athleticism. He makes your sub packages better. And then if he can give you more than that, then that's a complete win. But if he's playing in your nickel and playing in your dime and playing 35, 40% of the snaps, and he's improving you in those sub packages, then he's an absolute take. I don't know that we can look at him and say that guy adds a win to this year's record. Like, I don't know how many more of those prospects exist, but at this point, being able to bring in somebody who's only going to be a 1-year rental, by the way. So there's no added responsibility of, well, we've got to keep this guy on scholarship if he sucks. If he sucks, he's gone. And that scholarship just opens up next year and they'll be able to fill that spot. And I think the important thing to know where Texas is at right now is that they're under the 85. And I think that they feel like they can take a few more guys. And at this point, try to take as many guys as you can get with the 25-man and what would be the 32-man recruiting restrictions lifted. What Sark doesn't want to happen is to get to August or September 1st and be closer to 80 than 85. So I think right now they're looking for guys they think can just make this team better. And I think Tuck gives you that opportunity. There's no way to get around the fact that he's a guy that, you can tell him, come here, and in week 2, you're playing against Alabama. And if you want to open up some eyes in the NFL, if you want to try to convince people that you're a draftable player, you know what? Do it against Alabama. I think there's a sales pitch that's going to connect with that kid, that young man, if you will. I think my expectations at this point, boy, you can't lose that kid to Central Florida. No offense to Central Florida, but, we just had the question a little bit ago of like, why isn't Texas more attractive and doing better in these recruitments of defensive players? To me, it'd be a blinking light warning sign that Texas wouldn't have good enough recruiters to convince a kid to pick them over Central Florida. I mean, I don't want to make it look like we're creating too high of expectations, but you've got to be able to beat Central Florida in a head-to-head. If someone else jumps in and you lose because he wants to go to somewhere in the SEC, okay, you can live with that. They got to be able to beat Central Florida. Hey, I don't know who came in here with that Uncle Fester stuff. Don't make me start banning people. I'm just kidding. I can live with Uncle Fester. Eric Torres asked, by the way, who was it? I meant to say it. Somebody gave me a shout out for, Brandon. Brandon Melton mentioned, love the show that Chad and I did back in the day. I miss working with Chad. It's been 12 years, man. Or, 10 years. 10 years ago in July will be the last time that Chad and I did a show together. And I still love Chad Hastings. I do a radio. I will never do radio again. But if somebody offered me an opportunity to work with Chad, I might do a radio show. Technically, I look at what I'm doing right now on the channel like this. I look at this as being better than radio. When Anwar and I do our live stuff on Mondays and the podcast on that for me is radio. This is the new era. This is what radio looks like in 2022. It's talking to you guys on YouTube and being interactive and close in ways that we haven't been in a long time or ever, really. Eric Torres, shout out to Eric, a nominee for the gummy bears or the gummy worms or just the gummies, I guess, from Rogue yesterday. Catch, do we really know if DeMarvion Overshown is the guy? What has he proven? Can't shed blockers. Open field, he's great. Missed a bunch of tackles last year. Who says Tuck can't be that guy on the big stage? Well, look, Demo is an OB guy. Demo is doing videos for us up until, February? I love DeMarvion. I'm rooting for DeMarvion as much as I'm rooting for any player in this program. I love DeMarvion Overshown. I want that dude to have success. I want him to earn a super huge NFL payday. I want his life and his family and everything connected with him. I want nothing but great things for DeMarvion. However, Eric's right. Overshown has not yet proven that he's one of the best defensive players in the Big 12. And I think that that's kind of how we viewed what he should be in his career. And I think he was on the verge of that 2 seasons ago during the COVID year. I think last year he did not take the steps forward that we thought DeMarvion was going to take, which is why he's even back in the first place. DeMarvion Overshown expected to be playing in the NFL this year. No doubt about it. Trust me. I know what those one of the reasons why DeMarvion stopped doing videos with us in February is because we set up his contract to expire after the football season because he expected to be getting ready for the NFL draft and didn't necessarily want to be committed to doing videos with us when he was getting ready to move on with the rest of his life. So his contract ended earlier than anybody else that we had a contract with because his expectations were that he was going to have a huge year, and he didn't. And I think that's what this year's about, man. I think this is DeMarvion Overshown's last chance to prove that he is the guy. This is a defense that needs playmakers. They desperately need DeMarvion Overshown to be a playmaker. They need him creating forced fumbles, sacks, couple interceptions on the season. He's got that in his tool bag. And it didn't happen a year ago. And look, I put that, look, I think Demo would say, I expect more of myself, no excuses. I'll be better this year. But I also look at like Pete Kwiatkowski and I'm like, yo, that's one of the guys that you need to be making better. And if a guy like DeMarvion Overshown isn't improving under his watch, I mean, that's problematic. It probably means you need a new defensive coordinator if guys like DeMarvion Overshown through their sophomore year get to certain levels and then all they do is keep knocking on the door and never quite get there. But I have, super high hopes for Demo this season. I think that guy, the thing about DeMarvion for me is I feel like we've watched him grow up into a man. And so I think that there is a responsibility and a professionalism that exists inside of DeMarvion as a college player that as a young guy, he wouldn't have had. I mean, this is what it looks like when guys stick around and it's like year 4 or year 5 and they're 22 or 23. And guess what? They don't act like idiot teenagers. So I think DeMarvion knows for the standards he would have set for himself wasn't quite good enough, not remotely good enough. And I think he's committed to, making this thing work and doing his thing. And Eric says, you need a guy at every level. Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. Paul saying, I didn't give anybody a heads up notice that we were going live tonight. Yes, I did. I feel like I said yesterday, there was a good chance we might do something today. And I did come on Twitter about an hour in advance. And I tried. The thing is, Paul, if you miss the live show, you can still watch it. So, but you're right. In the future, I'll try to do a better job of communicating. Rodolfo asked, and I saw your question earlier, Rodolfo. Where did it go? Hold on. Let me go to Rodolfo. He wants to know what's up with Xavier. Is he still with Orangebloods? No. Xavier, towards the end of last season, it was a tough season, man. It was 5-7. And I think the stress of having to do videos in the middle of a 5-7 season, coupled with, I don't think we always make it easy for our Orangebloods athletes. Xavier at one point's in the middle of a 6-game losing streak in his freshman season. And, we got to do a post-game show after Iowa State that people still bring up because at that one point I was like, why in the hell would Quinn Ewers want to come to Texas? After the Iowa State game, I got to be fair. I got to be honest, that felt like a fair question. I think Xavier just felt like he needed to focus on football. I don't think it was quite going for him like he had hoped it would. And like we didn't want to be a problem with any of our guys. I have told every athlete that has signed with us that we want our partnerships to work, that we want to be good partners for them. We don't want to be a bad thing. We don't want, when their deals expire, to say, I wished I'd never done that. I think Xavier was in the, I kind of wished I hadn't done that stage of the proceedings. And so we just kind of let Xavier go away and do his thing. No hard feelings on either side. And I think that that's the way these relationships have to work moving forward. If you sign up for something and it ends up being different than what you wanted, I think we've committed ourselves to being really good partners with our athletes, so that they can be honest and say, I'm not happy. I really don't want to do this anymore. And we don't want guys to be doing videos that they don't want to do anymore. So that's what happened with Zay. The cool thing is I thought we got to chronicle Xavier's freshman season in a way that nobody's ever been able to have access. I also think the school hated the fact that we had such amazing access with Xavier, and I think they looked. Yeah, I have a feeling that it just was a bit uncomfortable. We had almost exclusive access to the best player on the team. And I don't think Texas was completely ready for that. I don't think they were big fans of us having that much access to him. I completely understand. We can move on. But you asked the question, and one of the things that I always want to make sure that we do, or at least that I do, is that that we're going to keep it a buck, and that I'm not going to. You ask me a question, I'm going to give you a genuine answer. Quite frankly, these types of settings and taking these questions, they're not real good for liars. If I'm going to tell a lie, I don't want to be making it up on the fly. I want to be like Jimmy. I want to be Saul Goodman. And if I have to it's like talking to my kids. I got to have a plan, right? Like if they ask me about what happened today, what do I say? And if I try to deflect it, what do I say? One of the cool things I think you get by having access to us in this setting is that I think there's a genuineness. I hope that we're able to convey that sometimes when we write, people are like, oh, you guys hate Texas, and there's an angle, you're just trying to sell subscribers. I think one of the things I hope that these videos allow us to do is let you guys connect with us on a personal level in a way that makes you realize, oh, I can go to these guys for information. They'll respect me, and I can respect them too, because ultimately at the end of the day, they're pretty good guys. And I hope that's the thing that you guys take away from this, is that, you're not watching a couple of assholes talk sports. I mean, I've got certainly my a-hole moments, but I'd like to think at the end of the day, I'm sorry. The one thing is that when I'm talking and reading at the same time, it does get to be a little bit difficult. Money asks, how soon will we see a player wearing OB paraphernalia during the games to promote the site? Well, first of all, they will never allow that. But second of all, because I think it's against you wouldn't believe the rules we have to follow. You would not believe all of the things they won't let us do. By the way, shout out to Patrick for doing the super chat thing. Patrick Donovan, hey man, come strong with a question next time. If you're going to use the super chat, make sure that you do so in a way that I can absolutely answer anything specifically that you want me to answer. I think moving forward, the players are going to be priced out for us. That a year ago when I was talking, it was almost this time. It was only about 11 months ago that NIL passed, and we started talking to some of the players, and I was talking to guys and their moms and their dads. Now everybody's got an agent. Everybody's got somebody representing them, and there's so much money involved now. You think about the Pancake Factory. What offensive lineman am I going to go up to and sign an NIL deal with? And the expectation is, well, I got 50 pretty much doing nothing. What are you going to do? These guys aren't trying to get their cell phone bills paid at this point, like maybe they were before. Now they're trying to figure out how they get themselves into a Lambo. I'm not sure that Orangebloods will be the place. Patrick says, what did Patrick say? I'm the guy who called you a wet blanket 2 weeks ago. I was wrong. See, Patrick? See? All you got to do is hang out with us for a little bit. I promise. I'm way less of a wet blanket. I like to have fun, man. I mean, I did 5 years of national radio by myself. So, boy, that can be really boring if all you do is radio by yourself 5 days a week for 3 hours a day. If you're not having fun, man, trust me. Danny asks, does Arch commit in June? I meant to hold on. Sorry about that. I'll come right back to you, to Jackie. Although you weren't even talking to me, so maybe that I won't. Danny says, does Arch commit in June? I don't think so. It might be the last group of visits that he takes in June. By the way, for just joining the chat, we talked about Arch Manning for a long time. I mean, we're an hour and 6 minutes into the video, so go back and watch the first 20 minutes and you'll get a lot of Arch discussion. I think Arch, well, I'm not going to say it's impossible, but everything we keep hearing behind the scenes, and at this point, our sourcing on where we've been able to get information on Manning, at this point, it hasn't been wrong once. So when our Manning people are telling us that he wants to wait a little bit and potentially take it into the fall, man, until they give me a reason to believe otherwise, I just have to believe that we're getting the right information. You know what? I think the best way to answer that question, Danny, is to say, ask after the visit to Texas, the 17th through the 19th. Because at that point, he'll have taken his official visits and he might feel a certain way about his recruitment that he didn't feel like he may. Whereas today, he may be saying, I want to wait till August. Maybe he doesn't in June. And then maybe it changes. So I think you at least have to leave the door open that it could happen. But my expectations are that he will not commit in June. But, you know, we'll see. By the way, Paul, thank you very much. What makes Ketch the best of all the YouTube channels is he's entertaining and knowledgeable. You guys didn't know that I was logged in to 2 usernames. I've got a YouTube. I'd say thank you, Paul, but then it would be really indulging thanking myself. No, I'm just kidding. Paul and I aren't the same person, but the check is in the mail. Thank you for the kind words, Paul. It's a lot better than the Uncle Fester thing that I got a little bit earlier on in the day. Real quick, last thing that I plan to talk about, and then I'll take a few more questions and we'll wrap this thing up, because I do got to go be a dad and like love on my kids a little bit. If you missed it about an hour ago, we have this German Shepherd puppy who is creeping up on 6 months old, and she's more wolf now than puppy. I think she stepped on my son's foot, Hendrix, and I think he screamed out in pain. And I was like, shut up. So I do got to go check on my kids in a little bit and make sure that everything's not good. But I will do another round of questions. I still have my eye on the chat. For instance, Chuck is asking who won the gummies from Rogue. That was our guy Charles, who was really funny yesterday. I thought there were about 5 guys that could have won it. All right, Amars. Amar's cutting to the front of the line, joining the super chat. I need to get a bell or something that I ring when the $10 super chat comes in. How long before Patterson is the DC? I'm going to say January, because what we know about Texas is if you start firing your coaches in the middle of the season, it's such an admission of failure, right? So if Kwiatkowski and the defense doesn't get better, let's say they give up 60 to Alabama. If you make the move then, what it really means is you should have made the move in the offseason, and you shouldn't have been dicking around with this set of false pretenses that Patterson was here for one role and that you're fully committed to Kwiatkowski. If you're entering a situation with a coach and you're like, we'll see how he does during the season before we make a decision. I think more times than not, that means you know what you have to do. It's like you're in a bad relationship. It's like, well, I'll give it like one more month. And if like I stop being a jerk and she stops being what she is, and we just become the best versions of ourselves all over again, even though it's been 9 months since that happened, then we'll stay. If you're doing that, you kind of know. I just think you can't get rid of Kwiatkowski during the season. It's just like saying it out loud. What are we talking about? And it's funny because I think one of the posters in the chat earlier that I was like, hey, thanks for saying that I'm not a complete, meathead and a wet blanket. I think we were probably talking about something like the defensive coordinator position. Look, man, here's my line of thought. Pete Kwiatkowski built a reputation for being one of the best defensive coaches in the country while he was at Washington. The expectations are that he is going to be an elite. He's getting paid elite defensive coordinator money. He was not elite a year ago. I have to believe it's much better in 2022. And if it's not, then I think Gary Patterson will be the defensive coordinator. If there's not another job that Gary Patterson might have a head coaching job in 5 months. I think Gary Patterson would love to have a defense or a head coaching position in 5 months. But if this season ends and the defense hasn't taken major strides, I mean, it's pretty simple, I think, at that point. Let's see. I'm looking for other questions. Money says Pete's defense can't be much worse than last year, right? Yes, that's what I'm saying. I mean, a year ago it felt like nothing positive. Let's count out the positives from last season. You had a young freshman defensive tackle that played pretty well. Jahdae Barron got better in the second half of the season and became a player that you could really count on, I think. I mean, some guys made some tackles, I guess. Rather than be a wet blanket, I just won't even try. That's the kind of year it was. But Bo Davis is a good coach. Jeff Choate arrives with a reputation of being a good coach. Kwiatkowski has a reputation for being an elite coach. Blake Gideon's kind of thought of. I think Texas fans take him for granted a little bit because he's a former player. There's not a lot of respect for what it was that he was kind of building from a reputation standpoint. These guys are supposed to be good coaches, and I think they get it done. I'm not giving them the benefit of the doubt as much as I'm just saying they should be able to. Because if they don't, then they're not who they are supposed to be, and Sarkisian has to make changes at that point. Let's see. Any other? Let me see. I don't even know what Chuck's question is, but I'm going to sneak Chuck in here. Did the defense look better in the spring game? I'll say yes, modestly, but do we really know? No, I didn't think the defense really looked better completely. If we're being completely honest, the thing about the spring was that anytime the first team defense did anything, it was usually against the second team offense, and that second team offensive line was so bad they didn't want to have a spring game. I mean, one day we'll tell the story of Steve Sarkisian's tenure at Texas, and we're definitely going to mention. Remember that second spring when they just didn't do a spring game because they had so few offensive linemen? So it really is, the defense looked great last year in the offseason, and then the game started and they didn't look good. So with it being such a zero-sum game when you're competing against yourself, it really does become tricky to completely know who you are. I couldn't watch the defense in just the spring game and say, oh yeah, that group is definitively better. We still don't know about the pass rush. We still don't know who the playmakers are on the defensive side of the ball. And we still don't know, like, down in and down out on a down in basis, can they make solid plays and not give up the gashing plays that allow teams to score 50 points on you? All right, final call. Let's get some final questions in. This is like our 5-minute heads up notice. While you're doing that, like the video, subscribe to the channel. I'll take a few more super chat questions if you guys want to get down. I wanted to mention Tarique Milton real quick. And Rob says 71 days until kickoff. Thank you, Rob. I just needed to, that's a good, plant that number in my head. I like Tarique Milton kind of for the same reasons that I like Tucker Dorsey. I've seen some crazy shit today with regards to Tarique Milton, where I've seen people say things like he's better than Jordan Whittington. Like, I got to go back to Orangebloods in a little bit and get back into that thread and have the conversation with, I think, Hufftex. Can't remember who. Apologies if I called out Hufftex and it's not him, but somebody in the message boards was like, oh, he's exactly what Jordan Whittington is. Whoa. I mean, understand that Tarique Milton wasn't starting at Iowa State. So, whatever it is we want to say about Jordan Whittington, I'm pretty sure he'd be starting at Iowa State. Tarique Milton was a very promising receiver in 2019 and then got hurt and hasn't ever quite been the same from a production standpoint since that injury. I think a fresh start probably helps him out. I think he's a guy that, look, the thing that really stands out about Milton is that even no matter what, other than that injury-filled season in 2020, when he averaged like 6.5 yards per catch, he averaged 21 yards a catch as a sophomore. He averaged almost 20 yards a catch last year in limited volume. I think that, as a backup, if somebody and the thing that I like about Milton is that when I go back and look at his Iowa State film, he looks like a guy that can play outside or inside. So he's given you depth potentially in multiple positions. And if there's an injury, I think there's more certainty in calling in on a guy like Milton to give you depth and like to start 3 or 4 games if somebody has a high ankle sprain or something like that, then maybe going to a Casey Kane or some of the young players that are still in the program. So I think, look, again, Milton's just like Tuck in the sense that getting him, I don't think changes the season record, at least upon first blush. But if Tarique Milton had been on the team a year ago, when Jordan Whittington gets hurt and Milton's able to be a guy that replaces him, maybe the offense doesn't fall apart in the way that it did a season ago when when Whittington goes down, they were never the same offense ever again. And that happens essentially the same time that Casey Thompson hurts his hand. And I think it's fair to ask, like, did those injuries impact the Texas offense in such a way that we don't know really how good this offense can be with the players that return? Maybe. Danny was talking about, Danny's had a couple of comments. So much speed on offense, incorporating the go against Alabama should be fun to watch. Danny, you know what's interesting about that? By the way, good comment, because I probably wouldn't have mentioned this. By the way, real quick, Jesse Wyatt asks, see, you guys will fire in those questions. I'm GK Ketch, Jesse. GK Ketch. If I go back to Danny's comment, though, about the go-go offense, Sark was asked in the spring about incorporating the go-go offense, and he kind of gave man, we're not doing that. He kind of, I don't want to say he patronized it because I don't want to be starting shit, right? Like it wasn't that bad. But his answer indicated that they weren't. And it's like, oh, well, we're always looking for ways to get better. But when he was asked the question, I got the sense that Sark was thinking out loud, I'm pretty good at this offensive thing and that we're good. I need things out of Brennan Marion, but I don't necessarily need to go. It'll be interesting to see if he said that to throw off the scent. I think it would be interesting to see if they would incorporate something like that against Alabama. I'm just saying that Sarkisian said publicly, probably not. I mean, at the end of the day, I think he trusts his offense, but I think we'd all like to see it. So I'm glad you brought that up, just because it gives us something we were able to circle back on that, because I think that's a thing that people will think about during the season, and I don't know that we're going to see it. Let's see, a couple more questions before we go. Probably not going to take a question from Tinder XYZ girls here. That's kind of weird. I'm not quite sure what's going on in the chat. We might have to block the Tinder girls. Colby Harris says, good point, Catch. Calling it now. Shug, Rashawn, for those that don't know, will eat against Alabama. Colby, that's, Rashawn's probably the most underrated guy on the team. Anwar and I both think he's an NFL player. Anwar and I think Rashawn's a draftable running back. I know, Brad. I know. Suddenly there's just people who are talking. There's a Tinder hot girls, and I don't know. It gets crunk like that at night, apparently. When we do OB at night, it goes like that. Hey, you know what? Last question of the night. Unless someone sneaks in something on the super chat. MSBBB966, who, by the way, was first today. Give him credit for that. Texas NIL. Here's my Texas NIL update. I was told about 3 or 4 weeks ago that there was a bit of a log jam procedurally, that on the Texas NIL front, they're waiting to hear back from the IRS on a couple of matters that, like, as they establish the NIL programs the way that they want to, there's just some rubber stamping. And Derek, I'm going to get to you. I promise. Didn't forget about you. Matter of fact, I'll put you up so that I don't forget about you as we wrap things up here. And I might even, there's a couple of good questions. I might even take one from Rogue Shop here in just a second. Stay tuned on the NIL front. I expected that we might, in the month of May, already hear some more things on the NIL front, and yet here we are at the end of May that it hasn't happened. I would bet that something happens in June. I wouldn't have bet that it would happen in May. I thought there was a possibility that it could happen in May. I think it would be a disappointment from those involved in the NIL initiatives if they're not able to get some more NIL information out in front of the general public in terms of what it is that they've done, what they've created, and how folks like yourselves who want to be involved in NIL, how they'll be able to do so. So stay tuned. What I'm hearing is that you guys are going to get positive answers, but I don't want to promise you guys dates that, quite frankly, I don't exactly know. I've only just been told ballpark things, like it shouldn't be long, but like, what does that mean? But the sense I have is that you're probably going to get it sometime in the next month. I think you'll hear some stuff NIL related. Derek Morgan asks about DeGabriel Floyd, the former Texas linebacker who, never really had a chance because of an injury. Derek, I haven't heard that anything's happening with Texas and Floyd. I need to check on that a little bit more. I don't know how realistic that is. I don't want to ignore you, but I don't know that I feel like I've had pretty good answers for like I can't think of another question that's been asked where I haven't felt like I've had the answer for everybody. I don't know that I've got a good DeGabriel Floyd answer for you right now, other than to say there is no answer that I have available for you right now. So nothing that I know is imminently cooking with him, but that is an absolute fine question. Xavier Herbert wants a Real Madrid Liverpool prediction. Xavier, Javier, Zay, whatever the case may be. Sometimes, Xavier McDaniel has always had me wanting to call people with an X, the X-Aviers. I want to treat them like Xavier McDaniel, but I know sometimes they go by Javier or Zay. I, 2 weeks ago, was convinced that Liverpool would swarm Real Madrid in the first 30 minutes, score 2 or 3 goals. But I mean, doing the Liverpool thing and going balls to the wall first 30 minutes of the game. We've seen that Man City able to just kind of blitzkrieg Real Madrid to a certain extent. They didn't finish the opportunities that I think Liverpool can. The injuries to Thiago and Fabinho have me a little more. I thought Liverpool would absolutely win 2 weeks ago. I don't know. I think we could see something like 1-1, 2-2, and it gets played out in penalties. So if you were going to ask me for a prediction, I would say 2-2, Liverpool win after 120 minutes on penalties. But I am worried a little bit about the Liverpool midfield. Real Madrid's midfield, the last 3 times we played them, has really just outclassed us. And Liverpool having injuries in the midfield eliminates what I think was a pretty healthy advantage they had in terms of the quality of their team going into this game. Let me see. One last thing. I saw Richard's question. What's more important to Manning, us winning 8 games or a top 3 recruiting class? I think the winning 8+ games. They want to see that Texas isn't some Mickey Mouse operation led by a head coach that's better as a number 2 than as a number 1. And last year didn't answer that kind of question with certainty. So I think they'd like to see Texas be 3-1 at the end of September. I think they'd like to see them with 1 loss against Oklahoma. My man Blake producing the show today says top 3 class doesn't happen if they don't win 8+. Yeah, there is a little bit of yin and yang to that in the sense that they're probably connected. But I think the only thing Arch Manning and his family are looking for is proof that Texas is going to be legit under Sarkisian. That's it. I think they've got everything else answered. They love Sark. They dig Texas. They dig Austin. They don't know 100% about the football. And that's the thing that they've got to answer. And if they do that, I think they'll get him. That's why I put in a future cast for Texas more than a month ago. Chuck says, I guess, final comments of the day. Prayers for Uvalde. Yeah, man, I hate to end it on a really sad note. I don't really want to say thoughts and prayers. It feels so empty. I ache for those kids, and I ache for the parents of those kids, and I ache for the parents and the kids of that school who weren't shot but have to live the rest of their lives with that as a core memory. I was thinking about my kids. My kids are 8, and they are about to finish the 2nd grade. And I was just thinking today, if that had been their school, even if they hadn't been among those that died, even if you survive and you're on the other side of the school and it was just some class that, you didn't know anybody, it feels like that's irreparable harm that would have occurred, not just for the families of I don't know, even what the numbers up to right now, right? 14 plus young kids, like even beyond that, the reality is that hundreds of kids today at that school and their parents and their family, they'll be impacted by what happened today forever. And, what do we do? I hate to say thoughts and prayers because it feels like we say thoughts and prayers a lot. I also know that what are we going to do? We can't agree. We are Humpty Dumpty as a country. We've fallen off the wall. We broke into pieces, and we can't agree enough on anything enough to even begin to put Humpty Dumpty back together again. And this is one of these things that needs to somehow be addressed. I don't know how we do it. I can't say thoughts and prayers. I hurt. I ache. Those kids, that school, that area will be in my thoughts for a while. Like so many of the other shootings. But I don't know what we do. I don't have any hopes. Sucks to feel that way, to just feel like this is the way it's going to be. It's been 25 years since Sandy Hook, anyway. Thoughts and prayers, though, like Chuck said, for Uvalde, right? Like, we all feel that way. I feel like we need to do more than pray, though. What is that, though? What is doing something more than thoughts and prayers? Shit if I know. If I did, I'd have said it already. But anyway, let's all hug our kids tonight. Let's finish this thing up. It's 8:34 Central. We had a good time. We talked some football, a lot of Arch Manning. I'm gonna go hug on my kids. You guys do the same. Tell the people that you love that you love them. You never know when you're gonna be involved or know someone who's involved. And there were some kids today who told their parents goodbye. I love you. And they'll never get to hear that again. So, don't take that for granted. Go love on your kids. Tell them you love them until you can't say it anymore. And do the thing that those parents won't be able to do tonight in Uvalde. They won't have the ability to do what we'll do tonight. And let's end it on that note. Don't take the ability to love on your kids for granted. Go hug them, love on them, and we'll do this again Thursday. Thursday, we'll do the modcast. One last chance. Like the video. Subscribe to the channel. We're trying to get to 12,000. Help us get there before the end of the weekend. However, for all of you who've been in the chat and for everybody who's participated and watched, thanks for watching. I've enjoyed it. We will do the OB at Night show again, hopefully soon. Until then, you guys take care.